This week on the show, we talk kids' movies from the 80s and 90s that may not be kids' movies. Next on Legion of Dads.
Dad's home.
Hi, Dad.
Lord of the manor, king of the castle.
That seems appropriate.
I am a dad.
We are dads.
We are many. We are one. We are the Legion of Dads. The Legion.
Dads.
Hello.
We are the Legion of Dads.
Join us.
The Legion of Dads.
An entire legion.
Great, Dad.
We are the Legion of Dads.
Daddy-o.
From now on, we'll be known as the Legion.
So we are many.
We acknowledge this is an appropriate metaphor. We are Legion.
We are the Legion of Dads.
You are not alone. We are all in this together now.
Hello and welcome to the Legion of Dads, a show for the modern dad. We talk movies, comics, video games, and how to be a great dad. I am your host, Wyatt Cagle, and with me as always, I have my co-host, father of two, Kenneth Dupuis. Hey, Kenneth.
Hey, Wyatt, what's up, Legion?
And father of four, we have Richard. Richard, hey, how you doing?
Doing great. How you doing, Wyatt?
Well, I am doing great. I am happy to be here. Happy to have the Legion with us, you beautiful people. We are going to get into the show today. We have our topic show, and the topic this week is beloved kids movies from our past that we all grew up with, we all loved, and then we go and we show it to our kids, and there are things that we forgot.
Yeah.
And as a parent, you may want to know about these things. So, Richard, I want you to start us off because you have a very interesting, unique take about specifically 80s movies.
Well, that's right. Wyatt, you and Kenneth and I, we all grew up in the same time period, the 80s.
The 1880s, correct.
That's right. An era of reruns and VHS. And we watched a lot of movies that we loved, and we watched them over and over again. Maybe our dad recorded it on VHS. And I think a lot of these movies we watched as a kid, and then nowadays we buy them on DVD and we show them to our kids. And then suddenly there's a scene or there's something in there that we were like, whoa. I don't remember that being in there before. And honestly, I talk about the 80s because I think that's a unique time when movies were getting a lot of reruns, a lot of replay on cable. Cable was cleaning them up so that we could watch them.
Or even network television, because I remember that's how I saw Star Wars was on CBS. They did a Star Wars night, and I remember recording that on VHS and just destroying that VHS by replaying it over and over and over again.
That's right.
I had Back to the Future, like all three of them on separate, cassettes with the commercials. And I just memorized those commercials and had dreams of editing them together as one movie as well.
And our parents back then were amateur editors, and they would maybe set up the VHS deck, maybe cut out the commercials. And anyways, we were seeing...
What parents did you have?
Jeez.
You know what? I didn't do that, but my wife's dad would clean up movies for her, like edit out parts. I mean, he would do this.
Wow.
With a generation loss?
These are legit situations. But if our parents weren't doing it, the networks or the cable company was. So we didn't even know it.
There are movies that I watch today and go like, that's not the line. Because I have in my head the cleaned version, the TV edited version,
Yeah.
and I watched how the filmmakers actually made the movie, and I'm kind of like, that's not right. Like, he doesn't say that.
And my perfect example is Animal House. Now, it's not a kid's movie. It's not a movie we watched when we were kids, but as I was growing up, it was on TV, and I might catch a little bit of it here and there.
Yeah, the cleaned up version of Animal House is like 4 minutes.
I know. Well, it's not HBO. I mean, we're watching it on TBS or something. They've cleaned it up for TV. There's a scene, and I'm sure you guys remember it, where Belushi is on a ladder outside of a sorority house. And they are undressing and they're about to have a pillow fight. And he's jumping on that ladder, moving it from window to window. And I distinctly remember that this scene lasted like 30 seconds because he's banging this ladder on the window and the girls don't notice him, and he turns and looks at the camera and falls back. Well, it wasn't until I was much older when I saw this scene in its unedited original presentation on DVD or Netflix or however we watch our movies today. This scene went on for 4 minutes, which only made the joke funnier. But it was then that I realized that my whole world and all the movies I'd seen up until this point have been filtered. They've been, baby-proofed for me. So that's kind of what I wanted to bring to this conversation today was, what are some movies that we saw as kids that we love, and maybe we go to show our kids this and we're having to cover their eyes or, put on the ear muffs.
Well, now Sony's like trying to do this like before, like when you buy it digitally, you get like the R or PG-13 version of a movie, and then you can get like the kid version.
So it'd be just like with music, you have the radio cut, the clean cut, and then you have the explicit.
I always thought when DVD came out that they would finally be able to like, all right, now I can see some like, they'll have a rated R movie, like, I don't know what it is, like Terminator or something, and then they'll have a PG-13 version on the same disc, and maybe even a PG version. Like, I don't know. For some reason, I thought that would happen. And
as a dad, I understand why people would want that because.
But as I love filmmaker, I'm so against all that.
I love Terminators so much, and I want to sit my daughter down and let her watch it and be like, "Isn't this the best thing, Terminator 2?"
And then she's gonna go.
When are you gonna do that, Kenneth? When is the day that you sit your daughter down to watch 80s horror / this is 80s, so there's nudity, and
it's the day before you have the big talk with her.
I don't know, teenager or something, like late teens.
Late
I don't know.
Teens, huh?
Well, maybe early teens. It depends on how mature she is.
Maybe next month.
Yeah.
Whenever.
Maybe I already did it.
Don't judge me. Don't judge me.
But yeah, I mean, my problem with the studios now trying to do it is like the filmmakers aren't involved in it. I think if you have the filmmaker involved on it, it could be a good situation because the filmmaker then still feels like he had some part in it and it's moving his film forward the way he wants it to.
Well, but sometimes the filmmaker is actually quite a bit. You are involved with the international cut of your film, with the television cut of your film. They don't always give you as much resources. A lot of times they can't bring in the same actor or something like that, but it depends on the level of the movie. But a lot of times the director is tasked with like, no, you got to make this work. You got to cut out X amount of minutes or whatever, and just make it work. So, I mean, it's part of you have the original artist connected to it, but it's not necessarily what they were intended. I will say though, that sometimes it makes the movie funnier with the
like Snakes on a Plane.
Snakes on a Plane
is like way funnier.
All these Monday to Friday snakes.
Yeah. I'm tired of these monkey fighting snakes on this Monday through Friday plane.
Richard, though, give us an example of a movie that you grew up with that, looking back on it, maybe you've watched it recently and you were thinking, okay, I can show this to my kids, but it didn't pass modern parenting standards, if you will.
Well, and I don't know if I would dress it up that much. Let me just say that in my opinion, the 80s was, we grew up in the 80s, like I said, and one of the characteristics of the 80s to me was that movies of the time had kids cussing. To me, they seemed to have a lot of cuss words in them.
Wolfman's got nards.
Nudity happened in 80s movies. Now,
totally.
And in my opinion, and I'm sure listeners can correct me on this. Well, I tend to think that
violence. 80s some major violence too.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, I mean, the RoboCop is like the peak of like extreme violence.
Let's dial it back down to actual movies that are somewhat geared for a younger audience. I don't think.
But even then,
I don't even think Paul. I don't.
Paul Verhoeven's
Verhoeven
kids
was like,
movie.
You know what? I think those 12-year-olds are going to really dig at 209.
Well, they sure did. And that's another thing was back in the 80s and 90s, they marketed those movies to us. You know you were buying the RoboCop toys and the what was the mech thing?
Ed 209. You have the RoboCop
209.
toy that you put like caps in the back.
With caps in the back.
And
I had that toy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Totally.
I mean, I think to me, 80s was on one end of the spectrum of like, we're just letting everything fly.
Well,
And
after
90s,
Lucas made so much money with Star Wars toys, toy companies just went crazy with licensing.
Yeah, and McDonald's and Batman and just
Batman. Totally.
It was everywhere. And they were trying to market to us. And so I think you started on this one spectrum in the 80s of just extreme violence and vulgarity and whatever. And then
Bruce Wayne totally did Vicky Vale. When I was a kid, I was like, she's just sleeping over. You know?
In my opinion, in the 80s, it was on one end of the spectrum. In the 90s, well, it started to swing back to a more maybe conservative, maybe they decided to dial it back, the powers that be. And then I think nowadays,
I don't think anyone's ever considered the 90s conservative, but okay.
I know everything's so extreme in the 90s, but maybe somewhere between the 2000s and now. Because my one argument is that there used to be a time, and the 80s was the invention of PG-13. Before the 80s, there was no PG-13. It was either PG or R. And
or
fortunately,
G. Didn't they have G?
Yeah. And fortunately, Spielberg came along and said, whoa, Indiana Jones falls somewhere in between this.
Well, it was
need something else.
No, it was Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I think it was Gremlins that he first, like, I think Gremlins had something to do with it too. Because
he may have kind of hit the same wall, or he hit that wall with Gremlins. And then when he went to do Temple of Doom, he hit that same wall. And he's like, guys, come on.
Yeah.
There has to be an in-between.
So the 80s was the invention of PG-13. And to me nowadays, I don't know about you guys, but like I took my son, I didn't take him. We watched the recent Transformers, not the recent one, but 4, Age of Extinction.
Yeah,
it's garbage. But like nowadays, you can get away with it's full of cuss words, and you can get away with 2 F-bombs in a PG-13 movie. And I just think the pendulum is swinging back the other way. So with all that said, this is the era we grew up with. And one of all three of us, one of our most beloved movies is Back to the Future.
I want to say something. I think Back to the Future is overrated.
You're just being spiteful.
Yeah, I am.
You
No.
son of a-
I'm just messing with you because of Blade Runner.
How dare you? I'm out of here.
This is heavy.
I love the silence. That was perfect.
No. All right. So we all grew up and loved Back to the Future. And to me, I think Back to the Future can be a great kids movie. I was looking forward to the day that I could share it with my son. And we're watching it, and I've seen this movie a million times, but like I've mentioned before, some of these versions have been cleaned up, and maybe I didn't know it. Well, I mean, I'm not saying that we want to raise our kids in a bubble, but we do want to, kind of protect them, and maybe, we don't approve of our kids using language, so we try not to show them things with language in it. And so a couple of years ago, when he was younger, it definitely was not okay for him to watch movies with language in it. And, Back to the Future is an 80s movie, and it has some language in it. Even some of the most memorable quotes from that movie have language in it. And, but anyways, so depending on the age of your son
or daughter,
right now mine's 11. So we're letting more and more stuff slide. He knows that, I don't like after we watched Age of Extinction, I was like, you heard a lot of words in this movie. I don't ever want to hear you use them. So he understands.
He's like, okay,
that,
Dad.
What?
Yeah.
He's like, I already know those words.
And maybe that's true. Maybe it's public school, whatever, but we do our best. So one of my examples is Back to the Future, that you may not know it, or E.T., that you don't expect it, but sometimes some cuss words slip into your favorite kids' movies.
Is it just, the cursing? Or is there some themes that you think that are more adult that you didn't like, things you may have not understood as a...
Oh, is that the road y'all want to go down?
Well, I mean, I think that's some of like the films.
Themes, and to be honest, I never really even picked up on those themes until it was explicitly laid out for me in that Cracked After Dark video where they're like, everything that's wrong with Back to the Future. And then, oh yeah, Biff's a rapist. And I was like,
totally.
Holy cow. He's not just getting in that car to make out with her. He's up to some
with the
vicious things.
The racism, the rape, and the incests.
But it's used in a comical way.
And Peeping Tom.
Oh, totally.
Oh yeah, totally.
You is a peeping Tom.
I put a lot of that in a category of like, it was over my head, or it would be over your kids' heads. Like, because I think there's some things like language that your kids are going to pick up on, but there's some things like we talked about earlier, and I don't see it on y'all's list, but we discussed, another one of our favorite time travel movies is Bill and Ted's, and another one of the famous lines from that movie is, what's my favorite? What's our favorite number?
No. What number am I thinking right now?
69, dude. And
I didn't know what that meant when I watched that
right
movie.
Over my head until I was.
But how many times did you repeat that?
I know, running around church or whatever.
How uncomfortable did that make your mom?
Shut up, Richard.
Plus, like, what is it like in that movie? It's Bill's stepmom. In the second movie, it's Ted's stepmom. She's like just older than they are.
She was a senior when they were.
She's like 18.
I just rewatched it, and there's a great joke in there where it's like the segment before is like, "Do you want to get on the couch?" She's like, "No. I just have an Oedipus complex, a slight Oedipus complex."
Well, and there's another great
Which
scene
I didn't
where
get until actually recently. I was like, "Oh." I haven't watched this.
There's another great scene where the dad totally has sex with a stepmom in Bill's room or whatever.
Yeah, in his own room.
Again, he closes the door to lock him out. Totally went over our head at the time. So I think that falls into a separate category.
You can put that category even with like Looney Tunes and like Bugs Bunny. There was double entendres and wordplay that were meant specifically for, okay, we know that some adults are watching.
And to be honest, like movies like Toy Story, I think are made better when there is humor targeted at adults, so that it's not just some mindless kids.
It's not the Emoji Movie where you're just like, I hate myself. Why am I here?
Yeah. Why did you go see the Emoji Movie?
I thankfully no. I saw the trailer and that was enough. And then I mean, I lie to my kid all the time because he's like, "Oh, we should go watch that." I'm like, "It's not out yet." And then when it comes out, he's like, "Can we go watch that?" I was like, "It's already left the theater," which is not necessarily a lie because it's on, but he doesn't know it's on iTunes and I can buy it. I don't. Now, Kenneth, you have on your list Hook. Now, I haven't watched Hook in forever. Tell me about Hook.
I've seen it, and I'm curious to see why it's on your list, Kenneth.
It's on my list only because, and I don't actually think that it's terribly inappropriate. My daughter actually loves this movie, and I tried to not make her watch it as many times as she has watched it, but it's just, I lost the battle. One will stand, one will fall, and I fell.
But why was that such a bad thing?
It's not such a terrible thing. But
you just
some of the thing
prejudice towards this movie.
No, I just think that this fits into the category of a movie that I watched as a kid. And it's like 91. So I was like 9. It's not an 80s movie. But it's got some adult themes in it and some things that I feel like are obviously going over her head and she doesn't get, but like, I don't think if she did get them, I'd probably be a little more like, okay, yeah, we're definitely not watching this.
In my opinion, and kind of jumping off of what Richard was saying, having those themes in there, this is just like whenever we used to sit around the campfire and tell stories. This is how, and this is Grimm's fairy tale and stuff like that. Like, they can be dark and have some adult themes to them.
Well, sure.
As long as they are helping to tell a morality story or telling how the world works. Now, when it's just a double entendre, when it's just a fart joke, whenever it's that's a little bit different.
That's not really what I'm concerned. I mean, the things that I'm concerned about the movie. I mean, there's a couple of instances of language, and they're not. It's not like an F-bomb or anything like that.
It's bangarang.
Bangarang. Toodaloo.
Well, bangarang's a racial slur, so no.
But it's kind of more of the. First off, there's a whole scene where Hook's debating suicide or wanting suicide. In the middle of the movie, he's like saying, "Kill me now, Smee, kill me now." And,
but he didn't mean it.
Well, I know, but there's like, I think like Shmee holds a gun to his head from what I remember. I could be wrong about that, but it's just kind of like a very
Help
adult,
me, Help
like
me.
not
Take the gun out of my hand.
Yeah. Like not only is like death, I think like for a 4-year-old, like you got to kind of explain what that really, what it means. So the finality of it. But like suicide is just kind of like one of those conversations I don't want to have with a 4-year-old.
Right.
And so, but she doesn't really, she thinks it's all kidding and joking and it's just funny and she doesn't really understand it.
Well,
and kind of some of the other
a tone of that movie is very much like a cartoon. It's
and some of the other theme is just because, as a father, I like the Peter Panning at the beginning of the film. I'm like, he's such a kind of a dad that like to his son. And
it makes you look better.
Well, I'm just saying that like, I don't want my daughter to try to think of me like that. And I know that that's a weird thing to say, but I don't want to put it in her head that like, that's how dads are supposed to be. That's what a dad is. And I don't know.
Well, if anything, she'll appreciate you more because of it.
Totally. Run home, Jack.
That's right. That movie gets me, or gets to me.
No, yeah, no, I love that movie
because the movie, the part of that movie that like terrorized me when I was a kid. Isn't there a part of that movie when they put somebody in a trunk and then drop in scorpions on them?
No, they don't put somebody. It's actually a pirate being played by Glenn Close.
That's right. I always thought that looked weird, and then later I found out it was Glenn Close.
But one of the other thing is there's kind of some sexual innuendo with like the mermaids and stuff like that. I don't know. It's not terrible. It is kind of violent. Like Rufio gets stabbed in the chest, and it's kind of got like a little bit of. It's got a little bit of tiny everything. Not like a lot of one thing, but it's got it's got sex, it's got language, it's got violence, a little bit of all of it. And it has a dad who leaves to go to Neverland when he's married and like makes out with some mermaids, kisses Tinkerbell.
It's got some grandmother love.
But anyway.
Well, a movie that has all the things that you don't want and more and just burned me recently was The Goonies.
Yeah, totally.
Because that thing went on sale and I was like, oh, The Goonies. I love The Goonies. I want to share this with my kid. And I started playing it. And after about 3 minutes, I stopped it. We can't watch this yet.
Go to your room.
Yeah, go to your room.
Oh, yeah. There's like this scene where he's driving. Like, I remember as a kid, like, there's the scene where the Troy guy is driving around Andy. And he's like purposely moving the rearview mirror to like see up her skirt. And as a kid, I just didn't get it. I was like, what's he doing?
Yeah.
And then like, as I got older, I was like, oh, Troy, that Troy.
Yeah. No, I mean the sexual predatorness of that, the language of it, there's just so much, which it's not saying it's a bad movie at all. Actually, I was like, go to your room. And then I watched it again. I was like, no, this is actually a really fun movie. It's just not appropriate for him at his age right now. But it is, I don't remember any of that any, which maybe is a good thing that I don't remember the violence, the threatening to shove a kid's hand into a blender.
Chester Copperpot.
Chester Copperpot. But I mean, it's still like a great movie, but it is one of those things where the amount of the language, though, which I hear over and over again on this podcast being a theme that we're like, oh my, I can't believe they're saying this. And I think it goes back to Richard's point that we saw a bunch of this stuff on either cable or on television.
Totally.
We didn't have or I don't know, did they clean up VHS copies of movies?
No, but like, man, Turner and ABC were just airing all this stuff in the 90s, all these 80 movies. And I just remember like a lot of them being on TBS and TNT, and it was just, they edited them down, man.
Yeah, you'd record it on VHS. It was censored from the network or the station, and then you just label your VHS, and that's how we saw Star Wars on the labeled VHS.
Yeah, I didn't own the Goonies. I had it recorded off TV. That was definitely one of the ones that I had on a tape.
Same here. I mean, that's all my movies where I think I owned one, or in my house, I should say, we owned 2 or 3 VHS. The rest of them were blank VHSs that we bought from the store. And then you sat there and you waited and you hit record play.
It was a different time, man.
Yeah.
You put it on EP so you could have like 2 movies 6 on
hours.
it. yeah, like 3 movies on there.
I was a cinephile even then. I was like, you know what?
No,
I noticed
curious
that the quality was better.
I had a beta tape so that I could break.
And then I would jump up there and hit stop, wait for the commercial break.
God.
And then hit record. So a lot of times,
my grandmother recorded all mine. So,
well, I didn't have a dad that would edit this stuff out. I had to do it myself at 6 years old.
I even had one of those like VHS like holders, like you pulled them out in the drawer.
Yeah, the wood grain. There was just
handwritten labels from Mama on it, and it's just
wood
like
grain plastic.
Yes,
shelf.
Totally wood grain. Yeah, like.
I didn't know you guys came from like upper class. I'm down in the slums here with the cardboard sleeves.
It was cardboard sleeves, but the drawer that it was in was a plastic wood grain. It looked classy. It went well with your TV that was built into the furniture.
Made of rich mahogany.
Rich mahogany.
Yeah, I had to bring my own VCR though.
What?
From home. No, I'm kidding.
Wait, you brought your own VCR to make your grandmother record shows for you?
No.
Hey, one thing is fun fact. I didn't see Goonies until I was dating my wife. And separate fun fact, I don't like it.
Oh, really?
Yes, honestly. No, this isn't even like a Blade Runner. This isn't even a Back to the Future. I knew this was going to be part of the episode. I don't like the Goonies.
What don't you like about the Goonies?
The octopus.
You mean
everything.
It was the original
I could list
Ocean's
so
11.
many things.
Well, the octopus isn't in the actual movie.
He's in there. They reference it. It makes no sense.
Well, they reference. It's just a bad cut.
I mean, come on. Well, I could see how it's not a college man's movie.
Oh, there you go again. You have to be, I can see how some idiot wouldn't like this movie.
I mean, I'm not going to bring Hook to a bunch of college kids and be like, this is a classic. You got to watch it. It's the best movie ever.
I see what you're saying.
Get out of here, dude. No, I mean, I get what you're saying. I've had that happen with people like saying this movie I loved when I was a kid. And I was just like, whatever. Get out of here.
Speaking of another overrated movie, Ghostbusters, Richard, can you?
No,
I'm just trolling.
Ghostbusters deserves every rating it gets. I love Ghostbusters.
Well, thank you, Lord.
But it should not be shown to children.
The only reason I have it on here, and I was watching it the other day, I'll give you 2 reasons. There is a scene that I don't remember.
Isn't there like a nip slip?
It's not even that. It's
it's pretty much everything that Bill Murray does because it's all.
No, this one's Dan Aykroyd.
Creepy.
Dan Aykroyd.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking
gets
about
some
now.
action from a ghost. And
Oh,
I think it was a dream or something.
No,
Oh, that's like a deleted scene.
It's not.
It's not even deleted.
It's in the movie.
It's in the movie.
Yeah, no.
I thought it was extended in the deleted scene.
A ghost goes down on him.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. That was the term I was looking for. Yeah. So that happens.
Man, I bet those are some words you never thought you'd have to utter.
Exactly. Which again, maybe this falls under the. It definitely went over my head at the time, but now looking back on it, that scene of his pants being unbuttoned or whatever, like it's totally what it is.
I don't even think I noticed that was happening as a kid.
I know. Looking, now you're going to go and show it to your daughter and you're like, whoa, cover your eyes. Like totally inappropriate. And we all grew up on Ghostbusters. I mean, I'm telling you, if you were a child of the 80s, like Ghostbusters was the thing. It was the
Well, that's funny because I seriously did not get into Ghostbusters till like college.
What?
Yeah, no, I never watched it as a kid because it did not because it did not feel like a kid's movie. It was way too scary.
Dude, we were watching Ghostbusters cartoons. We had the Ghostbusters toys.
Ghostbusters cartoons.
We were watching both the Ghostbusters, all three of the Ghostbusters cartoons.
And the Ghostbusters. Yeah, the one with
real
the monkey.
Ghostbusters, the extreme Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
We had the toys,
No, I was all about the Ghostbusters, but I just never saw the movie. I just saw the marketing.
We had the cereal, Ghostbusters was the thing.
I just got into the marketing, because you see the cartoon, you see the commercials, you kind of
slime.
Yeah, Slimer and stuff. Yeah, no, I get that.
One of the things, I just never saw one of my favorite toys as a kid was I had the firehouse. It was like a 3-foot tall firehouse, and you could pour slime. It had grates that went all 3 floors down, and you could pour slime from the top, and it would ooze down. Yeah, it was awesome. So Ghostbusters, that scene. And the other thing that I would just kind of tack on there, because I love Ghostbusters and saw it so much as a kid, those dog beasts are horrifying.
That's what I'm saying.
To this day, they are horrifying. I watched it the other night, and that thing gives you nightmares. I mean, from the moment it comes out of that statue, it chases what's his face down outside of a restaurant, and the joke is that. Yeah, the joke is that everybody's in there and they're all snooty people and they just go back to doing their own thing. I guess he was only possessed, but it's horrifying that happened in public and nobody did anything to help him.
My story about the reason I did not watch or finish watching Ghostbusters was because of that scene. I was at my cousin's house. They had HBO. It was on and they're like, oh, you got to watch Ghostbusters. So I'm watching it. That scene starts and it's 10:30 at night or something like that. I'm 6 years old and he's a couple years older than me. And I just stopped and I went, I'm done. And I walked out of the room. I was like, I'm out. I'm out. I'm not watching this. I'm not watching this.
Is it just me? And I'm sure it's a demographics thing or whatever, but seems like everybody has HBO now. Back in the day in the 80s, you only knew of a guy who had HBO. You were looking forward to those free encore weekends.
Well, that's right. We didn't even have that. Yeah, but it was because we didn't have cable till I was in junior high.
Yeah.
But no, they had a satellite dish. And the big screen TV that, the case. Yeah, no, they
4x3. Or my favorite was at our church. They had the big screen TV, but it was the one with those 3 lights.
Yeah, that's the one that they had. It was just, it
I don't even know how it works. It was how it
front
worked. Projection.
Yeah. Yeah, you had to have a football field to project something. And looking back on it, I'm like, man, the quality actually on the CRT that I had at my house, which was a lot smaller, looked better than the big screen because it was always washed out.
Yeah, that's right. And it always had a burn hole in it.
Yeah.
One other thing I noticed, because Ghostbusters was on the other night, I was watching it in HD, and it's beautiful. Everything holds up. There's just some things that I'm noticing now in 40-inch HD crystal clearness that maybe the benefits of like SD from a time gone by, like maybe it just like hid some of those faults a little better. But like I was watching one of those dogs chase down Rick Moranis through Central Park, and you can totally see the like crop boxes around the dog as it's moving. And I was like, I don't remember seeing that for the past 30 years.
These movies were built in a time, they were made in a time that you did not watch something over and over and over again. If you were a diehard fan, you would go to the theater 3 or 4 times, but you wouldn't sit there for day, you wouldn't have this on your shelf, and anytime you want to watch this movie, you could pop it in. Like that was a new thing in the 80s.
I know, even like in the 90s, like the 80s is when VHS came out, but we were all recording stuff off of TV. I don't remember actually like buying movies until like Jurassic Park, or I think in the 90s
T2.
is when
Star
VHS
Wars
really took off, like buying the movie and bringing it home. Until then,
because it wasn't terribly
Blockbuster.
affordable.
It
wasn't that
Blockbuster
affordable
video.
that's
it wasn't
right.
it wasn't affordable to own VHS probably until maybe the late 80s or early 90s. I mean, because I think that when it first came out, they were like super expensive for a tape.
Yeah, weren't they like $40 or something like that?
Or maybe even more. I mean,
Yeah. Well, like $40 in 1980s money. I mean, that's
well, right.
1980s, 40s bucks.
Yeah, I mean,
You can
that's-
buy so much cocaine with that.
You beat me to it, Richard. I was going to make a cocaine joke.
Oh, the 80s.
I like how we're making jokes about it's like, how old were you in the 80s? Oh, I was 8. I was 8 years old.
I was born in the 80s.
Exactly.
Yeah, now a movie I don't have on my list because I haven't watched it in forever, but a movie I clearly remember watching as a young child with my younger cousins was Crocodile Dundee. And we just thought that Crocodile Dundee was cool. He had a big knife and he talked weird. And man, I think I watched that movie years later and was like, man, why did someone let us watch this? Not only is it not that good, I mean, it's got its moments, but it's got some pretty effed up stuff in it, I think.
The
Like, it's
Crocodile
got some-
Dundee is not a good guy in that movie.
Yeah. But anyway, what's another one of yours? Who else? You got another one there, Wyatt, that it's on your list.
Yeah, so my next one on the list is one that you would think that this is a slam dunk. It's
Michael Bay's.
Michael Bay's. No, it's Transformers the movie from the 80s, the cartoon one. So one, it's really not that great a movie to begin with. But if your kid is into, I mean, it's okay, but it doesn't, I mean, if you watch the current stuff, the current Transformer stuff, not the Michael Bay stuff, but the cartoon stuff,
Like Armada,
it's so, I don't even know what we're
Rescue
up to
Bots?
now.
East
Man,
Wars,
we do Rescue Bots so much. So
East
stinking
Machines.
much. I think, golly,
Prime something?
I think that's what we're on is Prime. I can't even remember. But
Transformers the movie was the first movie I ever got taken to.
in that
the
movie,
theater.
there's a trauma that happens that still to this day I remember it happening to me. So I will not show it to my kid because he loves Optimus Prime, and I'm like, I loved Optimus Prime. And you go into that movie and they kill Optimus Prime, and I was like, oh hell no. No, I'm not doing this to him. Because it really did. It still resonates with me today. Like I watched that scene, I was like, oh, I remember this.
I love the story behind this movie. I mean, the movie and even the whole series is
as
just
a filmmaker,
ploy.
I love the backstory to this. I think it's fascinating.
Well,
Yeah,
all right,
sorry. I'm sorry.
get
Go on.
We'll get to that. We'll see if we're talking about the same backstory.
Okay. Yeah,
Well,
okay,
is your
keep
only
going.
reasoning? Wait, I'm confused though. Is your only reasoning that you don't think it's actually that good? And as an
It's
adult
mostly-
now,
it's
and
mostly
not
that-
just
it's mostly that
that
that they kill Optimus Prime, and if your kid is invested in Optimus Prime at all,
but is he?
mine is
Is he still the cool? Is he still the cool Autobot? I mean,
between
in
him
current
and
gen.
between him and Bumblebee. Yeah. Well, I mean, at least
Okay.
in my house. I mean, that's
And Rodimus Prime.
Oh, geez.
Totally.
What I love is the story behind the movie, that Transformers was meant to sell toys, and they just came out with this movie to kill off the first line of toys and roll out a whole
Yeah.
new line.
Yeah, because the first like 20 minutes they just kill every single
And then they
toy that
they
you grew up
traumatize
with.
a generation of kids. And then apparently
that
there
was
was a
me.
G.I. Joe. The G.I. Joe movie was in production. And look, after the reaction, the negative reaction to Transformers the movie, they decided to rewrite the G.I. Joe movie so Duke doesn't die.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, oh,
That was a
maybe we-
weird movie too. Now that you bring G.I. Joe the movie up, I'm like, yeah, that was a.
But isn't
was
like
a
it's
weird
weird
movie.
that movie had such an impactful death, and I think like one of the songs it's like from the movie is like the lyrics are like it's like try to see if you can survive or
Well, I
something.
don't
like
remember that one, but I remember
Yeah.
you got the touch.
It was like the first song. It's like the first song in the movie.
I know it's actually a really good song now.
No, not the song you were
So
singing. The
awesome.
song I was singing is like
Oh,
the
okay.
first song in the movie.
Oh, okay. Well, nobody remembers that. Everybody remembers you got the touch.
You've got the power.
And then also the line, what was it? One must stand, the other shall fall. I don't know, whichever Richard's been quoting.
One shall
Indeed.
stand, one shall fall. I think.
Yeah.
Check our Facebook page.
LegionOfDads.com.
Well, Wyatt, is there anything else you want to add to Transformers?
Yeah, no, I don't really have anything else to add. And then also, yeah, it's really
you just don't.
that,
You want to spare your son the trauma?
well, because if you are not invested in any of these characters, then
Yeah.
you don't care. But he is invested in them, so I'm kind of like, yeah,
Just got to learn about it sometime. It can be Optimus Prime or a family member. Come on, what are you gonna do?
I'll wait for Uncle Bud. So,
Or a dog.
oh, jeez.
What's it gonna be, White? I think a cartoon character is the way to go here.
You get Transformers or Old Yeller.
Old Yeller.
Oh man.
Well, Kenneth, I see you've got another one on your list.
I do. That's the last one I got. That is Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Was that a kid's movie? I mean, it's got animation in it, but it also has Jessica Rabbit.
Yes, it does.
This came out in the late 90s, and I don't know if it was marketed
was that
toward
the late 90s, really?
I mean, I'm sorry, the late 80s.
Oh, okay. I was like, that looks horrible
and I don't
for the late
and I don't know if it was specifically, marketed towards kids, but I remember like when it came out, I had like Back to the Future tapes, and it was like from the director of Back to the Future, and I was like, oh, gotta watch this. And then like,
well, I remember going to movies, and there would be like little baby. What's the baby's name?
yeah, I forget, but yeah, and he was like
It was
in
little
front,
shorts,
like
before
Honey,
the
I Shrunk the
movies.
Kids, isn't he in that? And isn't there a
Maybe.
short in front of that?
Yeah,
or something?
and then so I mean, I really think that was geared toward kids.
I mean, I don't know if it was the marketing was specifically, but it's it's got animation in it, and I mean, there's a lot of like Warner Brothers characters, there's some Disney characters in it. At the
Yeah, I don't
end.
even know how that works. Like that is some
Well, Denzi, I think it was like
amalgam,
there was some
amalgam
co-owning.
universe.
Yeah, and there was some co-owning, but now it's like
80s
completely
and
owned by.
cocaine. That's
That's
Yeah.
right, 80s and cocaine and Disney.
But I mean,
and
if you just
cats and
looked
dogs
at
living together.
if you just looked at Roger Rabbit and probably the trailers that came out, you wouldn't think that it wasn't a kids movie. I would think, I don't recall the specific trailer, but I'm sure it was.
I would love to look that up.
Yeah, I would love to see if the trailer was geared towards kids or not. But even then, most adults probably were like, animation. It's the 80s. It's for kids.
even to that point today, I have to always clarify with the wife about what Batman cartoon is appropriate to watch because, Son of the Bat.
Nope.
Yeah, nope. The Killing Joke. Nope.
Nope.
But you see animation and you go, okay, it's fine. And it's just like, no, he can't watch Rick and Morty.
Well, back then, unless you were like Ralph Bakshi, your animation wasn't
Did
something to be.
Did he do heavy metal or?
That a deep.
Yeah,
dish?
I think he did like heavy metal, and then he also did what was it called? I forget the one that's like
Eon Flux.
well, he did the Lord of the Rings ones, and he did Wizards.
Oh, okay. Yeah, those are not necessarily kids shows.
Yeah, there's one other one I forget. It was like got Frazetta artwork inspired.
Was it The Last Unicorn?
Kind of
that one?
No, it was a barbarian one. I forget the name of it. I'm butchering this, but these are there's a few and far between where an animation movie is just going to be
Sausage Party.
Back then.
Yeah.
But yeah. But this movie is like got a lot of violence. It's got, lots of drinking. There's several bar scenes. It is highly sexualized. There's been an internet debate and a VHS debate for years on whether or not you could see like Jessica Rabbit's underwear in the movie or something.
We could cure cancer if we would all just focus.
But that being said, I think that it's one of those movies that kind of broke a lot of ground, and I'm glad it exists.
Yeah.
But I probably won't be showing it to my kids till they're in their teens,
Well, and I remember as a kid, and
it's rated PG. It's rated PG.
What's his name? The judge's name?
Hershey? No.
Wrong movie.
I know. He was horrifying.
Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah, it's Christopher Lloyd. But I just remember how horrifying that whole this is my real voice. And then he tortures that shoe. And
Judge Doom.
Of course, Judge Doom.
You were overthinking it, Richard.
He was horrifying. That, to this day, that is knife eyes.
Yeah.
Scary as.
Well, even as a kid, I saw this when I was a kid.
I'm cussing more now because I know Wyatt will edit it out.
There you go. But the whole patty cake scene and the way they make that out. And as a kid, it's just, they're playing patty cake. And I didn't really get it. But now as an adult, I'm like, that means something else.
I think that just clicked for me. I don't think I did. I don't think I got that till just now.
You played patty cake with
So you know what? It's fine. It's fine. If Richard didn't get it, he made it to his 30s.
I'm a little slow on the uptake,
but also, even the casting at the time was I guess you could see that it was going to be a little more because you got
Bob Hoskins.
What's her name? Who plays Jessica Rabbit? Kathleen.
Oh, yeah.
What's her name? But she was
Kennedy.
Kathleen Kennedy. No, it's her. But she was she was in Body Heat, which was.
Well, she was in Romancing the Stone.
But she was in Body Heat, which is one of the most super erotic movies of the time period.
Or my favorite was. Which do you guys remember? There was one
being super erotic though.
No, but it was at the time.
Which one was the one? Did y'all see the one with her where she
Turner?
She was the mom, and she was a serial mom or something. She was killing It came on cable all the time when I was a kid.
Mom's an axe murder? No, I don't remember.
I forget what it was.
Funny bit of trivia: Lawrence Kasdan wrote and directed Body Heat. The guy who wrote Empire Strikes Back.
All right, now I gotta look up Kathleen IMDb. Keep going. Continue.
Continue.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Stepmom or whatever.
I think that, kind of some of the things we've been talking about in some of these other movies, I think that in Who Framed Roger Rabbit's case, this is kind of maybe got a little bit of everything. It's just in more of an extreme way than even, like I said, Hook had a little bit of everything that was minimal. This has kind of a little bit of everything a lot. Pushing the limit of how far they could go until someone was like, hey, you realize this movie has animation and kids are going to watch it. Well, yeah, we're still going to do this. So I don't know. I just kind of feel like definitely don't show this one to your kids until they're in their teens.
Well, Kenneth or Richard, if you can chime in, if we can pull you away from IMDb.
Yeah, it was Serial Mom. I think I had
Serial
it
Mom.
right the first time. Serial
Okay.
Mom. I
Yeah,
don't know if y'all seen
that
it,
sounds
but
awful.
He's
it's
jacked.
of-
He's jacked
it's of
in.
the 90s.
So, is there any resource that you, Richard, is there a resource that you use to kind of vet movies, new movies, old movies, anything like that?
Man, that is a hard thing. I do two things. I kind of have a rule of thumb that you take 3 years off of whatever the rating is. So, like, if it's PG-13, maybe I'll let him see it when he's 10 or 11. And that's my rule of thumb ish. But aside from that, there is a resource online called Plugged In Online. And there's an app for it. And most of the new movies, they will rate, they will tell you what's in it, what bad language is in it, what, Kenneth, kind of all those things you listed, all those bad things, if you're drinking, whatever themes you don't like, they'll tell you what's in it. And
What kind of message does it send though when I'm just downing a fifth of scotch while my kids are watching Trolls though?
That is true, Kenneth. What kind of message does it say? You are definitely
For some reason, whenever you said Trolls, I envisioned Troll 2.
Oh yeah, totally.
Oh my God.
And don't
Him
forget,
alive.
parents who want to take this to the extreme out there. You can buy DVD and Blu-ray players that take out the cuss words when you watch a movie.
That's right. Is the V chip still a thing?
I don't know about the V chip. Is that's what the technology I'm referring to was called? I never knew that's
back
what
in
it
the
was
90s.
called.
That's
That's
the
what it was
V-chip.
called. Terrible name.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, Plugged In Online. We'll scope out a movie before we take our kids because, like I said, PG-13 movies nowadays, you never know. And one of the problems is, all these Marvel movies are coming out. Marvel's good for the most part. You can take any kid to go see it, but you never know. So we always have to scope it out ahead of time to make sure it's something we approve for our kid to see. So Plugged In Online for us is a great resource.
There's also a website that I was just looking at tonight when we were talking about, getting ready for the show. A website called commonsensemedia.org. And they do a lot of different things, TV, apps, books, movies. And they kind of have their own film and TV reviews in terms of like what kind of, what's in it, violence, language, whatever. And then they also have user reviews that are talking about those same things. So that, that can be a resource for you guys. As far as I go, geez, I really lean on my wife in terms of this because I have a terrible, as my wife says, I have a terrible memory about like what was in a movie and what wasn't. And if it was up to me, I'd steer these kids all wrong in the movie department. Like I said, I want to show them Terminator 2.
Yeah, you were talking about showing RoboCop to kids.
To kids.
To kids.
Like you're traveling around to kindergartens. Hey, kids.
Yeah, I mean, if I base it off if there's a toy available for it, then it's good to. It's for kids.
Starship Troopers.
my wife's really the one that says, okay, maybe the kids shouldn't watch this. But, obviously sometimes you just don't know. And you got to have that moment where you're like, pause the movie.
Shut it down.
Are we shutting this down or are we going to just skip to the next scene? What are we doing here?
Yeah, no, did either one of your parents do that whenever something came up? Did they fast forward through scenes or cover your eyes or cover your ears?
Or just do the Philip Seymour Hoffman laugh.
When I stay with my dad, yeah. When I stay with my mom and stepdad, these are the folks who dropped me off to the movie theater and bought me a ticket for Pulp Fiction. And then
when you were 6.
Whenever Pulp Fiction came out, I don't know what year it was off the top of my head, but
that for real?
Yeah, yeah. And I've got some other stories about, watching movies that are completely inappropriate, not only to watch as a young person, but like movies you don't want to be caught with your parents watching.
That's a good question I'd like to ask you guys is along the same lines, what is the worst thing or movie or whatever you've sat through with your parents? Like, what is something that they showed you that perhaps had they listened to us back then, they wouldn't have done it?
Showgirls.
Whoa.
Wait, what? What?
I tap out. I'm done. I'm done. You win.
Game over. Shut it down.
Yeah,
That's wrong on so many levels.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, Jesse Spano from Saved by the Bell.
Totally. Yeah. No, I didn't pick it. It was just movie night. My stepdad picked out movies, and it's what we watched. And
Oh, the squirming that must have been going on in your seat.
oh yeah, and it's like,
Can I leave?
I was at such a young age, and you're like, I can control my body. I can control my body.
Wait,
I can
what?
control my.
No, we don't need to continue this conversation any further.
I told you guys it was weird. I just said earlier that I didn't want to bring it up, and then you were like, "What's the worst one?" I'm like, "Well, we also watched Basic Instinct."
Moving on.
I do not recommend watching Showgirls or Basic Instinct. Let me just make this clear, guys. Hang on. I am not recommending that or saying that it was appropriate in any way. I'm simply saying that my parents, my mother and my stepdad, made terrible decisions in their life, and this was some of them. I do not condone, endorse, or recommend this behavior. Definitely don't. That is insane to do that. It's just something that I went through.
All right. Well, let's move on to something that we can recommend. Richard, what is your recommendation for this week?
All right. So last week I was watching Days of Future Past on FX, and which segued into a new show on FX called Gifted. Are you guys familiar with this?
Yes.
Wyatt, have you seen it?
I have not. Well, I've seen the trailer, and I know it was shot in our neck of the woods. It was shot.
Was it really?
It was shot in Dallas anyway.
Dallas, yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
So Gifted is it's X-Men, but kind of it's post X-Men, but it's a whole bunch of new. I think it's after the X-Men. Like the X-Men, I don't think exist anymore.
Well, yeah, in the trailer, the kids are talking, and they're like the Brotherhood of Mutants, the X-Men. We don't even know if they exist anymore, or
yeah,
if
I think
they're
it's all
around
like
anymore.
it's kind of after the X-Men. So, but it's set in the near future. And what was great, I think this really benefited from me just finishing Days of Future Past, because Days of Future Past has Sentinels, in the 70s and the distant future. So you get that like retro Sentinel and the future Sentinel. Well, Gifted is
and
about
the Dinklage.
And the Dinklage. And so Gifted is about these kids that find out that they have powers. And it's set in the near future where like there's a Sentinel program, but it's more of like a department of the FBI or something. And they use maybe drones are kind of their Sentinels, or there's these little like spider robots. It reminds me of like Minority Report. So it's kind of that first step in the Sentinel program. We're not at giant robots. We're just starting off. And it was a really cool kind of entry into the X-Men universe. I watched one episode. The dad, Bill from True Blood, he hunts down or he prosecutes mutants, but he doesn't know what happens to them later on after they've been arrested or whatever. Well, it turns out his son and daughter have the mutant gene. So now he's
the X gene.
Yeah, so now he's trying to move them, and he's caught up in it, and he's torn between, what he's been doing and what he has to do. Turns out maybe this was all just rose-colored glasses.
Do I need to see this?
I really enjoyed it. It's my recommendation. I really enjoyed it. Maybe it's because I just came off of Days of Future Past, but
which is
good on FX for putting it right there.
It could be argued that that's the best X-Men movie.
I really enjoy it.
And I think the first episode of that series was actually directed by Bryan Singer as well.
I wouldn't be surprised. It's got
who directed
it's got some
most
really
of
good
all. Yeah.
for a TV show. And
Do you mean of Superman Returns fame?
Oh,
Bryan
yes.
Singer? Oh, okay.
of
Usual
of Jack
Suspects.
the Giant Slayer?
Yeah, Jack the Giant Slayer.
For a TV show, and I'm not up to date
Apt
on
pupil?
all the DC. I'm not up to date on all the DC superhero TV shows, but this one's got a lot of like mutant powers, and the effects is pretty good. So the effects on Gifted on FX is my recommendation.
And it seems like when it comes in terms of like shows, FX has kind of a better track record than Fox does in terms of knowing when they've got something that fans can latch onto.
Well, and even in the, X-Men universe, because Legion,
Yeah.
the other Legion is on FX, and I've heard great things.
Yeah, I have too.
I haven't seen it, but I hear good things. And plus everything else on FX.
Yeah, I think-
Fargo and all that other stuff.
I'll wait for them to come to
Greatest show
Hulu or
ever,
Netflix.
The Shield.
The greatest show of history. The Shield.
Well, Kenneth, what do you have as a recommendation for this week?
Okay, well, look, I'm going to be honest, Legion. Sometimes it's hard coming up every, week with something that we got to recommend. A thing or a place or something. This week,
Don't be a jerk. That's my recommendation. Just don't be a jerk.
Yeah.
And
This
show your
week-
kids Basic Instinct.
Yeah,
Or
definitely
Showgirls.
don't show them that one.
Especially not Showgirls. For no reason should anyone.
Because the plot
ever
is just terrible.
Oh, so your recommendation is Showgirl Special Edition on Blu-ray,
Is
Yeah.
Showgirls 2.
Hey, Verhoeven.
Electric Boogaloo.
Okay.
Wait, did Paul Verhoeven? Oh, he did do that.
Yeah. He's hit and miss.
Yes.
So this week, with us talking about kind of these throwback movies to our childhood and stuff like this, I thought this was maybe an appropriate recommendation, and that is a single YouTube video. And it is kind of a maker build time lapse of a guy named Steven Richter, who works at I think Tom Spina Designs, doing sculpture and design for feature films and TV. And he basically shot and made a timeline video of him building a screen accurate prop Jumanji board out of wood, measuring it, sculpting all of the front where it says Jumanji. And it's like 15 minutes long. And I was like, okay, I found this video on YouTube and I was like, God, I want to watch 15 minutes. Before you know it, I'm like 10 minutes in and I'm just glued to this thing. And I'm like, I got to see this thing come out. And then he's got an Etsy page where you can buy some of the things he used. Like he made pieces, the little, I forget, avatars or pawns that you use as when you play the game. You can buy them on his Etsy page. And he actually, when he built the board, he built them with magnets in it. So you can just throw your pawns on the board like the movie and they magnetically find their place on the board, starting positions. So I love Jumanji. It's one of those movies I watched over and over as a, not a young kid, but when it came out. And it's one of those videos that you watch on YouTube and it makes you just want to go out and do this. I want to go out and get all the tools I need and the know-how I need to do this kind of woodworking and sculpture and painting.
$400 worth of tools and 6 years of sculpting.
Yeah. I mean, this project probably
you've got it.
was a big thing for him. I mean, in terms of probably how long it took for him to do it. But it's only a 15-minute video. It's sped up, showing all the processes and stuff like that. I think it's a real fun little watch. I love videos like this on YouTube of someone creating something from nothing. It's a big draw for me. So hopefully you guys find it interesting. If you don't, don't watch it. Whatever.
It really is beautiful. Just skip to the end and look how pretty it is. And the magnetized pieces, that is a great, because if I remember correctly, that happens in the movie. Like when they throw the pieces on, they snap into place.
Yeah, and he's doing like screen printing for the lettering on the sides, and it's all, man, it's just like, if this guy was selling this board, I want to buy one just to see what happens when I roll the dice.
Kenneth, have you, are you excited to see the new Jumanji?
With The Rock. Isn't The Rock?
We got to have a conversation, a tiny conversation about this. I read about it coming out, read stuff, news. I do like The Rock, though.
Have you seen the trailer?
I watched the first trailer and I was like, whatever. But I watched the second trailer and I was like, okay, I got to see this.
Oh.
I want to see it. I was a big fan. I'm a big fan of Jumanji, the original. I'm going to give it a chance. I don't know if I'll see it in the theater, but definitely going to watch it.
Awesome. Well, my recommendation this week is a fashion accessory, a pretty cheap fashion accessory. I wear tuck-in button-up shirts quite a bit, and I hate the poofy top that after it feels like 3 minutes. I hate that where the shirt's just bundled up at the waist.
It's the worst.
It's the worst, and it makes you look like you've gained like 10 pounds.
You just look like a slob. Like
you never look put
you go
together.
from looking sharp.
You look like your dad in the 80s with like a parachute shirt hanging out the back in church or something.
Exactly. So I actually was talking to some firefighter friends and family members of mine, and they always looked so sharp. And then I saw them.
Turns out they work out. Who knew working out?
And then, really. Then I found out that they go to the gym. I don't know. And they
gym?
The gym. And they do jogging. I don't know. It's something. Maybe the J is silent. I'm not too sure. But
you get it.
But they also do. No, some of them are not in shape, and yet their shirts still stay tucked in. So they introduced me to these Tuck Saver adjustable straps. They're really inexpensive. They're $10. They basically clip to the tips of your shirt, and then they clip to your socks, so they keep your socks up.
I'm sorry.
No, well, you're not gonna look. If you got if you got the misses, make sure to take these off before.
Yeah. Well, no, this link that I'm sure the Legion will see has kind of a little more of a tasteful like picture, as tasteful as you can get with this kind of product. But there was another one that's like Amazon recommends that. And it's straight up like this dude's wearing his straight up briefs, and you're seeing thigh from every angle.
If you just scroll down a little bit, it's like
don't click on it, and there's close-ups, and it's just like
it's like
this hamburger meat hair hanging out. I'm gonna link it. I'm gonna put a link.
I will tell you though, I've been using these for about 2 years now, and it works. I pretty much wear them all the time whenever I have a tuck-in shirt, and it keeps it in your pants, for lack of a better phrase.
Now,
Which is what the women always say.
I can definitely see the, the goal of these, and the outcome looks to be like it's worth it.
Because
are they comfortable?
No, you do not feel them after. You wear them for about 10 minutes and you'll forget that they're there. No, they're completely comfortable. I have no problem.
I guess you don't want to wear them with shorts.
Well, no, you're not going to wear them with shorts. But do you wear shorts and a tuck-in shirt? Or at least I don't.
I don't. Oh. Yeah, I mean, I tuck in a shirt when I have a jacket, a blazer on, but that's about it.
I do go to the gym and I go jogging, and I would like to, at least look like I'm not a slob. So
you wear these to the gym?
So
no, these are cool.
There are other alternatives. Richard, you brought up something that had to do with magnets and, like how do magnets work? I don't know. But those were like those were like $30.
They're $30 and I've heard mixed reviews.
Right. Those are $30. These are 10. You could get them as low as I've got a pair that are all plastic and those were like $6. And those do just as good as the metal ones. I actually preferred the plastic ones. The Link has metal ones, but I couldn't find the plastic ones for the show.
Maybe the plastic ones are a little easier to wash. You could just throw them in the washer.
Plastic ones are a little easier to wear.
So these are like reverse suspenders.
Yeah, they're pretty much like reverse suspenders. Yeah. That's a good analogy for them. And it's really low key. It's really silly. It sounds really silly. It sounds stupid. You will use this every day.
Can you squat in them? It looks like if you bent your legs, like
no. This is what police officers and firefighters use when they go out into the field. Stuff like this. So if they're using it, you go.
What happens when you got to take a toozy?
Yes, Wyatt. Walk us through what happens when
Go walk me through the procedure.
Step by step. How you take your socks off when you drop a deuce.
Will you completely disrobe?
George Costanza style.
Keep your shirt down. You got a suspender to hold your pants up. But what's going to keep your undies from falling down now? These things are holding your shirt down and your socks up. Suspenders or a belt will hold your pants up. But what's keeping your undies where they are? You just go commando.
What's holding the deuce in?
Yeah. Man, Wyatt, I'm sorry. I did not expect this. I did not click on this link until you were like talking about it. I guess Richard was prepared.
What's great, and I don't know which link Kenneth clicked on, but if you scroll through some of those like recommended items,
it was the first one.
And worse. Wasn't
Jalinda
like a
men's dress shirt.
It's just basically a guy not wearing pants.
Yeah. You're hopefully just seeing the tip.
I actually think this is great. I've been looking for something like this. $10 is right up my alley, and between you and the Art of Manliness, I got to give this a try. So, good recommendation.
Go to Art of Manliness, and he keeps a straight face while talking about it. I'm having trouble breathing over here.
We are
plus
children.
if you put a gum belt on, some cowboy boots, and a hat, no pants, this could be a little treat for the wife.
I'm telling you though, do not. The first time the wife saw me with those on, she's like, "What the hell were those?"
You were like, "Look, this is what it takes, baby. This is the man behind the curtain."
Exactly. I was like, "Pay no attention. I am the great and powerful Oz."
Legion, you got to check these out. They're not for me, but they might be for you.
But they're legit. I mean, for $10, I would try them out.
They are legit. It's $10. If not, you've got a funny story for $10. The amount of laughter that we got, it's worth $10.
No, for somebody like Richard. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Richard.
I wear a tucked-in shirt every day with a tie clip. I'm trying to kick it up a notch. I've got colored socks because trying to match black socks in a drawer full of black socks is impossible. So I've switched over to colored socks, so they're easier to identify.
I love Billy Crystal in his autobiography. He calls them talk show socks because whenever you sit down, the pants go up a little bit and boom, there are your socks. And on a talk show, that's the first thing people see. So he always had these bright, colorful talk show socks. And that's pretty much every Christmas and birthday, I get some from the wife just because, and they're getting more and more elaborate. And some of them say stuff that if you actually read them, they're completely inappropriate, but they're hilarious.
Yeah.
So,
well, something else that, these could be really useful in, someone like me, I wouldn't wear them every day, but I've got a wedding coming up, I'm a groomsman in. and I've rented a tuxedo, and you know, most of the time you're uncomfortable in it, but you're like wearing this jacket and the shirt's riding up because it's like one size fits all type thing with those rentals, you know. So this could I might actually order these because they might come in handy for me in the next month.
Yeah, not to belabor this point or this product.
No, we're talking about going to
the bathroom. No, you'll figure it out. That's all I'm going to say. It's like
for $10, give it a try.
$10. It's less complicated than the 3 seashells, so you'll figure it out. But the amount of streamlining that you get from it is really nice. And comparing that to going and getting a shirt tailored, which if you go get, I do have a few shirts that actually I did some work that they were like, we can't pay you. And they made custom shirts. So I was like, all right, well, just pay me in shirts. So they gave me like 3 shirts or something like that. And custom cut shirts will not ride up, but 99% of the shirts that I own are not custom tailored shirts. They're shirts that I went and bought off the rack. And these things make them feel like those custom shirts very easily. So definitely worth $10. Check it out. I'm telling you, it'll change your life in that you might just laugh at yourself for a few minutes and then throw them away. Well, new this week, we have a new segment, letters.
We actually got a letter.
We got letters. Richard, tell us about our letters this week.
All right. So listener John writes, "Hey dads, I was listening to the podcast where y'all get into board games, Ticket to Ride, Catan, etc., and I thought I'd chuck out a recommendation for y'all to check out. I'm not a dad yet, so I'll have to stick with regular recommendations, lol. It's called 5 Minute Dungeon, and here's the link. It's a lot of fun, really fast-paced, and I really like that everyone is cooperating to beat the game, not each other. Give it a look. Thanks, John."
Well, thanks, John. That is awesome because I did take a look at this and I agree with him. I love the co-op play because there is nothing worse. There's nothing worse and an easier way to destroy an evening is to have a competitive game of Monopoly and everyone hating each other.
Yeah, don't play Monopoly.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice that, like, I mean, as the title suggests, it is short, so that if
that
you
is nice too,
have some friends, you can fit another couple games in of this, or you can move on to something else, or you can socialize with the people you have over at your house or whatever.
Well, but you also get into it really fast, and that's always a great game night where you can just keep going, and it's not just this long, drawn-out thing because somebody might not want to play, and if it's a 10-minute, 20-minute game, you're in and out real quick versus, you know, again, like an hour-long.
Yeah, totally.
And Kenneth, you're a regular board gamer. Is this something you think would fit into your game night, weekly game night?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think it could. We kind of sometimes have a bigger group than 5 people because I think it only goes up to 5. But yeah, I mean, with a game like 5 minute playtime, you can I mean, you know, we've played Munchkin before a couple of times, and that can just take forever, and it can get really complicated. It can also get really fun. But when you have a big group, it's really hard. So something like this, that is a short playtime and doesn't look to be terribly, you know, in depth in the rules and stuff like that. You can play multiple games, and different people can switch out, and you know, it doesn't have to get old by being the long game. So that's what I really like about it.
And what I like about it is it's ages 8 and up. I don't know about you guys, but we did try a couple nights. We played Monopoly a while back. Like every once in a while, we'll have a game night. This was pre-hurricane, but Monopoly drags out for like 3 nights with our family. So it took like a month for us to play Monopoly, so that each week we would have a game night. So since this is 8 and up, like this would work real great for our family. So I might have to check it out.
Well, Richard, where can the Legion find us?
The Legion can contact us at legionofdads@gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Or visit legionofdads.com. Now that I've rewritten that, it doesn't sound like it works that great. We'll fix it in post.
Try it again next week.
Yeah, never go back. So we like to finish the show with our last laugh, our dad joke of the week. Who has a joke for me this week?
I have a joke. Kenneth, have a joke for you, Wyatt.
All right, Kenneth, what do you have for us this week?
All right. Hey, guys.
Hey, Kenneth.
Why couldn't the bicycle stand up?
Why couldn't the bicycle stand up?
Because it's too tired.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yay!
We're batting 1,000 on these dad jokes. Well, Legion, if you have a joke that can't be any worse than ours, send it to us at legionofdad.com. And with that, good night, Legion.
Legion out.